Okay, our next presentation for this afternoon is our case study from GardaWorld. So please welcome Jeff Young, who is the National Director for Healthcare at GardaWorld.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. Thanks, everyone, for, again, having me at Canadian Security Focus on Healthcare event. I can't tell you what number of years this has been, but I've been an active participant and enjoy it every year, and I've enjoyed the speakers today as well. I'm going to do a case study today, very brief, on utilizing data. It's kind of a passion of mine. As the National Director for Healthcare for GardaWorld, I'm also a past president of IHOS. And tied into that, the data comment was I'm also the founding and current chair of the IHOS Data Warehouse Task Force. So today, what I'd like to just touch on is something that I think we have all dealt with during our careers, is the comment or the requirement that we need more frontline security. I think this is a common thing that we hear in the industry, and a common challenge that we as healthcare leaders have to move towards having more staff. So a question that pops up, and maybe your boss or executive will ask, well, how does our program, frontline security staffing, how does that compare with other like facilities? I think that's a legit question that a boss or an executive member or CFO would ask you. And I think at times we've had some troubles kind of answering that question. And what I wanted to do today is just give you an idea or a sense of maybe some of the things that you could consider when trying to address this. So here's a hypothetical staffing model comparison that I recently did. I've changed the data here to not reflect the actual hospitals, but it was a 3-hospital comparison, like facilities. So all 3 were very similar, specialized care with a very specific patient demographic. And you see up top there, I've got some workload drivers, which are fairly common. You know, the old building square footage, which I hope we can all agree is not a good workload indicator for security. And then things like bed numbers, emergency department visits, and outpatient visits, I would suggest to you are pretty core workload drivers for us. Others that you might consider, of course, are how many incident reports you have, how many calls for service, mental health and addictions, beds or visits, your crime index for the area. Is your area higher crime than others? And then what I did here is I looked at the comparisons when I took the workload driver, and then I took the raw frontline security guard, security officer hours, and that's an annual number. I didn't bother with FTEs, because what's an FTE? Is it 2080 hours? Is it 1975? So I just used raw annual frontline guard hours. And then I just did some simple math here and did the division. So I took guard hours per square foot. And you can see those, all 3 sites, sample hospitals had different rates. Guard hours per bed, and again, you see some differences there. Guard hours per ED visit and guard hours per outpatient visits. I think sometimes we forget about outpatient visits. So I want to just, and in particular in hospitals that are specialized, they have a high number of outpatient visits, what might outweigh bed numbers. So really, I'd say include outpatient numbers when you're doing any time of this type of comparison. Then the other thing I looked at was patient watch, and this is an area that's of very much interest across the country in the utilization of patient watch attendants or officers. And these hours are representative of extra hours. So this isn't your core hospital staff that might be called upon to watch a patient. This is ad hoc, on-demand patient watch hours. And then did a simple math of patient watch hours to bed numbers, which I think is probably the most indicative workload driver. And then I was able to get a patient watch hours per bed. And so what I did here, just simply, I did some color coding to make it easy for us. And I'm a very visual person, so this helps me, is when I looked at, can you explain the significant outliers? And I kind of in red had some outliers that were over and above what maybe the average or what we would expect. then I kind of used orange, which kind of caught my attention, and then green significantly less. So obviously you can look at this and you can say, oh, there's some outliers here, and there might be a legitimate explanation to the outlier, but we need to be able to explain that outlier. And then if we are requesting additional staff because we're busier, you know, if you look at this, which hospital data would best support a request for more staffing? So if you know, again, using this example here, I would suggest hospital C, at least on the surface, without, you know, explanation, looks like it's understaffed comparatively. And then does one appear overstaffed? Yeah, hospital A kind of draws me out a little bit, but then also something that really got my attention here was hospital B's patient watch to bed number. That's way off the charts. And again, there might be an explanation to it, or this might be something we need to look into further. And then just in general about data and you know, are you collecting the data? And I'd almost go back as you know, are you collecting data? I'm sure some of you might not be surprised, or some of you might be surprised to learn that during my time and travels across North America and visiting hospitals, we being the bigger we, still have hospital security departments that are using pen and paper reports. So I know you'll find that I found it shocking at some sites, but you know, are we collecting the correct data? And there's help here though. The IHSS guidelines councils come out with incident categories. So again, you can look at them, you can populate your incident reporting system with those incident categories that are already developed by the industry experts, and there's incident definition for each type of incident as well to assist you. And then the question is, you know, is the data that you're collecting, is it reliable? Is it consistent? You know, ensure that that's happening. Can you sort the data? And that kind of goes back to my pen and paper comment. Is it's hard to sort data when it's on pen and paper. So are you using some type of a database? And then are you presenting the data in a useful and understandable format? So, you know, again, a dashboard. Again, I'm visual, I need a picture. So can you present it in a format that's easily understood by folks and up, you know, to your executive and your manager, your director, VP. And something that you should consider too is, you know, look at your clinical colleagues' reports. Our clinical side of healthcare has been doing these types of utilizing data and dashboard reporting and reporting for a long time. So look at their reports, and can our reports kind of resemble the look and feel of our clinical colleagues? Because then we know our executive are used to kind of seeing those types of reports. And again, going back to a previous comment, can you explain the data? You know, what's the trending look like? Trending is very important. Again, outliers, explain the outliers. And then, you know, are you finally, the biggest point here is, are you utilizing the data? So is the data driving your work? Is it driving your strategy? And that's where we need to get to. And I think for the most part, when I look around the country and talk with colleagues, I think we're all doing this, and it's sort of progressive. And I think we're all sort of in different stages, if I could state that. So, you know, just keep the process and moving along. And then to the right, again, being visual. And this is from Stanford, a lot smarter people than me, but it tied in very, very nicely to my slide here, in that it shows the data as Lego blocks, and then how we get down to actionable, useful use of data. So I only had 10 minutes or less to just delve into the use of data and how important it is, I think, to drive our programs and to drive our success. And just go back to, you know, I have lots of sayings. One of the sayings I have is, you know, we're here to support a safe and secure environment of care. And we've heard that today from the different speakers. So thank you to Neil, thank you to Canadian Security Magazine, and thank you for all of you for attending. And thank you for having me.